because, whoops.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 118 of Libraries in Response. Began in March of 2020 in response to the pandemic, and it's gone on from there because the crises have just gone on from there. The health crisis, social crisis, economic crisis, political crisis, the climate crisis, AI now a new crisis. They just keep coming, and libraries are having to respond, their communities having to respond. And so we're looking at those various challenges and responses by libraries. We are the Gigabit Libraries Network, an open consortium of tech innovating libraries around the world doing interesting things, we think. Our host for the session is IFLA out of The Hague, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions. And the head of public policy is Stephen Weiber is at the helm, handling the recording, which will be posted hopefully by tomorrow for coming back. Our sponsor for the past year has been IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And we have two new sponsors that we'd like to thank: New Jersey State Library and the Texas State Library and Archives Commission. So happy to have you all come in. This is kind of an illustration we've adopted with permission of the artist to represent the circumstance that we feel like we're all in. These are kind of the modern four horsemen of the apocalypse, the global challenges, but crises come in all scale. I mean, libraries support individual personal crises of people walking in with all kinds of issues, but these are the things that are affecting all of us more or less all the time. And they don't seem to be separate. They seem to be actually reinforcing each other. Is the concept of the so-called polycrisis, where the multiple crises actually compound and add to each other. Grim, but you know, this is our world today. And so here we have today the Offline Internet Consortium, a group that's been trying to accommodate the reality that there are over 2 billion people in the world that are yet to be connected. I mean, it's been now 30 years since the web arrived, and you know, I say we all, the other 6.5 billion people think of it as, you know, no big deal. It's like one of our daily things, but it's just not so for everybody. And so what's the answer to that? Our take on adoption is that there are kind of three elements to it. Availability. If it's not available, then, you know, well, what do you do? Affordability, of course. If it is available, can you afford it? It's a big question. And usability, kind of a catch-all term for a whole bunch of things like equipment and knowledge and, you know, even an interest in it. And so this is interesting, the concept of offline internet, which generally responds to all of these, as libraries respond to all of these in different ways. So we're going to get into that momentarily. Actually, right now, I'd like to welcome Ann Okerson, who's going to moderate our session. Ann is a board member with IFLA, and among other things. I would just simply ask that you each do a quick intro of yourselves. And so, Ann, welcome. Thank you so much for putting this together, and take it away. You're muted.
Thank you for reminding me of that. It's something I do every time I'm on a call. So, hi, IFLA. Hello, Don. Hello, viewing audience. I want to say thank you for inviting us back, because in the early days of the Offline Internet Consortium, Libraries in Response hosted 2 of our members. I think that was 4 years ago. You had on Solar Spell at the Arizona State University and Bibliothèque Sans Frontières based in Paris. Now, today, Dawn has asked us to share with the audience some OLI updates and then highlight some member activities that show the diversity of outreach and initiatives that are coming from within the partnership. So a quick update. First, let me refer you to our new website. I'm not going to show it, the URL, but it's very easy. You can find it at www.offlineinternet, one word, .org. And it's got links to partners, activities, resources, contacts, and so on. This went live last fall. The guiding motto of this group has been the offline world is half the planet. Now, I just heard Dawn say 2 billion people aren't connected. That sounds more like 25%. But I think one could talk about those numbers in various different ways. And practically speaking, half is probably closer to on the ground reality. Even where the world has access, the access can be interrupted or interfered with for many, many different kinds of reasons, natural disasters, politics, and so on. And so our charge on the website reads, Bridging the Digital Divide. As Dawn said, OLI was created to raise awareness of offline communities and needs, to support the development of their needs, and to connect the various practitioners around the world who are providing service to offline communities and access to them. Our OLI members focus on different aspects of access, some more technology, some more inventive, some more library-based, but the goal is the same. It's to empower users in offline environments with resources that advance education, strengthen economies, and lift their communities out of poverty. A very big milestone for us was that in 2024, the OLI commissioned a report that examined the need for a deeper understanding of connectivities and the technologies that are effective in bridging the digital divide. The paper makes the case that digital divide is not a binary thing. It's not on or off. I have it, I don't have it. But it's a large gray area, a continuum of connectivity where hardware and software solutions, local content, digital skills, and supportive policies come together to enable meaningful access to a wide array of content that doesn't require permanent internet connectivity. The report is called The Power of Offline Internet Beyond the Binary of Connectivity. It's linked and described in detail on the website. It's a very readable and accessible document, and we encourage you to have a look at it. But I think it's probably easier to explain the partnership and its work by sharing use cases. And today we have 3 of our leaders who are going to do just that. Each one is going to take about 10 minutes to share highlights of their work. We'll have a few minutes for questions after each one. And in the promo, you've got their bios. So I am really just going to skip most of that. They're all very distinguished activists, and you can read a lot more about them online. Stefan will be our first speaker. He's CEO of Kiwix, which is based in Lausanne, Switzerland. Kiwix began life a few years ago as a software that makes internet content accessible to people without permanent connectivity. And Kiwix has grown from strength to strength. So Stefan, next 10 minutes is yours.
Thank you very much. You said the important part is that I am from Switzerland. And one of the stories I heard as a kid was that people that got rich when there was a gold rush in California in the 19th century were those not looking for gold, but actually selling tools and planks and nails. So in the offline world, I think Kiwix is very much a tool. As in, like, we're not on the ground looking for gold. Also, we're not rich. But we very much are serving everyone that needs it, irrespective of who they are or what plot of land they're trying to cater to. And rather than having like a very technical presentation of what we do, I'd rather have a bunch of slides actually of use cases. So I'll start with the general idea. I hope you guys can see what's on my screen.
Good.
Yes, perfect. So as Anne said, there are many, many ways that people can be offline. It's more like they are poorly online than they are actually very offline. Everyone gets to be connected. I mean, everyone has a small, 2-bar cell phone that they can probably call someone every so often or send an SMS. However, downloading data is a bit difficult. And there are many situations where you can be offline while you have connectivity. So we'll go through them. The first one, obviously, is that you're in the middle of nowhere. So that particular use case. It's someone who's an airline pilot, A380, I believe, and he was flying over the North Pole. So if you've been there, you may have recognized Queen Elizabeth Island in Canada. And obviously here there's no connectivity, but he brings Kiwix on board just to look up features and places that he actually flies over. It's interesting because he flew over the North Pole, but Kiwix is also being used on the South Pole. Where in the science bases are there, they actually have satellite connection, but only 5 hours a day because satellites, they go around the Earth, but polar orbits are a bit more complicated. So they are offline 19 hours a day, and they use Kiwix for different purposes, including movie nights, because why not? And they have long nights and hopefully lots of movies to look at. But that's a situation where they are connected, but not well, and therefore they need to have that offline access for work and relaxation. There's the obvious African scenario where people are poor, they cannot afford, they could be connected, but they cannot afford connectivity. And in that case, that's in Benin. So we have a friend who's an evangelist for Kiwix around the country, he's a teacher actually. And what he does, he says, well, you have those resources, you can actually get it on a very, very low-end phone, and you can get Wikipedia on your phone, you can get tons of resources for your homework and things. And even like 3,000 kilometers away in Malawi, there's a guy from the Peace Corps who's doing exactly the same. He's teaching kids, you have a computer, you have some homework to do. Your parents or yourself as a teenager, you cannot afford a phone, it's okay, because you can go on the school's computer that were donated and you can check out resources. So connectivity, it's a problem, but the solution is not always more connectivity. It's just like finding the content. And offline is exactly that. Offline is making sure that people get the information they need. It doesn't matter under what form. What Kiwix does basically is that the technology crawls any website. We make a copy, we compress it, and then you have a single file. Like you would have a PDF file to read the newspaper or whatnot. Well, you have a single zip file that reads the entirety and stores the entirety of Wikipedia on your phone. It's a pretty good technology. I mean, like the compression is very good, but that's the idea. You can take it anywhere. You can take it to prison. That's another way to be offline. In that case, it's akin to censorship because, the authorities don't want you to get access to the internet. But there are some programs here, it's in California actually, but it's all over the place in the US, where they teach inmates that are going to be released in 1 or 2 years or 3 years. They teach them to code. And obviously, when you learn to code, well, a lot of the resources are on the internet. So what we did is to copy major resources like Stack Overflow, which is another quite famous website for coders. And we copied like 20 plus million questions that, the students can look up when they have questions. They don't need to Google like, okay, I got that issue, what do I do? They just go and find it via Kiwix, but they have it stored locally. You can also be a refugee. In that case, you may be in a situation where you could have been connected, but you're not. Here we're in Lebanon. That young lady is working with Taki, and she's learning the basics of, editing and browsing, but being what it is, different refugee camps have different policies vis-a-vis connectivity. Well, at least it's reliable, and for classes, that works. You could also be in the middle of nowhere without it being the South Pole. Like if you're in the mountains, like that little kid in Kyrgyzstan, well, then what you have is, you could get connectivity, but your village is probably 3 days, if I recall correctly, by horse from the nearest city. So there's no way you will get it anytime soon. That's expensive drawing your cable. You can't afford for Starlink or whatnot. So you get Elimbox, which is a deployment of Kiwix on Raspberry Pis. So it creates a little Wi-Fi network that's big enough for a large classroom, and you can connect to it with a simple device like a smartphone, like if you were to connect to your to the internet, pretty much. Ladakh is in India, in northern India, is another interesting example. So large valleys, small villages, very few people, no chance in a lifetime that they'll get, fiber or high connectivity, but they can download via cell towers, via phone towers, which are like 2G, so very slow. But once they have it, then they have an access to the world, and that's what matters. In that case, I remember that story because it was pretty cool. The first thing they looked up was their village and their valley, and they wanted to know if the internet knew that they existed. And it's kind of sweet, and it's a reaction that you see actually all over the world. People want to see whether the others know that they exist. So they use it to learn English, because knowing English, even on those parts, you can work in tourism afterwards, and increases access to that kind of knowledge, actually increases their revenues and their livelihood. So we brought them Voice of America, Let's Learn English, which has a bunch of programs in different languages to learn the basics of the language, and it's very much appreciated over there. You could also rely on technology that is being deprecated. So Offlinepedia was in Ecuador, and they had a project, or they had a government program where the old CRT screens, the big TVs, were being, like, I don't know exactly what happened, but the technology made it so that those were being sent to rubbish. So what they did is that they used those free screens that were going to the garbage, and they put Wikipedia and all resources in Quechua, in Aymara, on a little micro server again. And there it would go to community villages or to community house where people could check out information, because again, countryside, low connectivity, not too much money. So, data is expensive. You have to make choices. So again, adapt Kiwix to the local needs with the local uses. You can also be living in a rich country and still not be able to afford high-speed data. So this is Emmaus, which is a charity in France. And what they do is they refurbish Linux computers, or they refurbish computers, and they put a Linux system on there, and they give it away to elderly people that are not super comfortable with computers. So it's a Ubuntu variant, so it's pretty easy to use. Again, those are retired, those are not super, at ease with being connected or whatnot. So they give them training, give them a bunch of resources that are stored locally and that they can use on a desktop computer. And that's fine, and everyone's happy with that. And then one of the last examples is higher education. What happens in many countries is that you can be connected at home, you can enjoy some level of connectivity pretty much anywhere, but as a student, you have a limited budget, let's say. And the books that are available in a lot of countries are older books. So what you need to do is access more recent material. And there's a bunch of educational material out there. In the US, I think of LibreText, for instance, which is like academic level material, and that can be used for students. If you have a choice between offline content on the computer that is a couple of weeks or a couple of months old and an actual book that is 10 years old, then the choice is quickly made. And I think I was on my last example, but it gives you an overview, and I think then the other speakers will give you a bit more details on how it goes on the ground or what kind of tech it is. But I really wanted to show that there are many ways of being offline. It's not always bad. There's always a good reason. And, it is what it is. And I'm back.
Thank you, Stefan. That was a really excellent overview of some of the kinds of activities that OLI and Kiwix and all of us engage in. I was really struck by this comment from a viewer, Judith Hellerstein. In Kyrgyzstan, the Internet Society chapter built a community network in the mountain for similar villages.
So this is the picture I showed was from ISA Kyrgyzstan. They're using their box is using Kiwix.
Well, maybe this is a bit off point, but some of you may know that the big IFLA Congress this year in August is in Astana. And we're all very much looking forward to going there, and just, we've never been there before. It's a whole unknown region to most of us. And the fact that Offline is already there it was touching. It was heartwarming. Yeah. We've got a couple of minutes for more comments and questions, if there are any. If
I have
not,
one. I
yeah,
have one. Stefan, that was outstanding. I haven't seen a better representation of all the many gaps in connectivity and meaningful accesses, and put it earlier on in your presentation. It's not binary, and I think that was the kind of opening message that Ann delivered, and you demonstrated the various, it's not there yet, it's there, but it's not there all the time. You have a backup, you have just so many scenarios. I think we could spend a whole hour going into all of that, but I just wanted to observe that point that you made, Ann, about the meaningful access is well illustrated here by Stefan.
Diane Huckabee would like a URL. Which URL was it we can post for you? Maybe you can put that in chat, and we'll do whatever you would like.
Yeah,
It
was one you referred to at the introduction.
Oh, okay. Let's see, Jim, could
OLI?
you post the OLI website and then maybe the link to the report as well, the white paper? Yeah, I maybe should have had a slide with those on it, but anyway, I didn't. But the other thing I was going to say apropos of some of these use cases is that one of our, I'm not sure quite a member, but approaching being a member is JSTOR, which many of you know if you're in the library world. And they have a prison initiative that I think will be very interesting to hear more about one of these days, Don. So there are a lot of things where we can dive deeper and get a lot more inspirational examples. Why don't we move on then to Carlos Gonzalez. He is CEO of Micaya, which is based in Colombia, South America. Don, we are showing you just how international this effort is and the participants. Micaya strengthens capacities for social development through technology, innovation, and international cooperation. In the social sector, Carlos's experience has been focused on bringing new opportunities to vulnerable communities using technology and helping to embrace digital information. Some of the work is offline internet type work, and some of it is more broadly based. So Carlos, you're up next. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Anne, from the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. So please let me know if you see it.
Yep.
Okay. So as Anna said, I'm not going to repeat our purpose as an organization, but the reason why we have that purpose is because we believe that once people and communities have access to information, and they have access to information and knowledge by using technology, so that people have access to opportunities. And because of those opportunities, that could be opportunities in any field like education, health, job, and many kind of opportunities, so they can transform themselves, and they can also transform their communities, their families, the people they live with. So that's why we work in bringing technology to vulnerable communities. We mainly we are focused on the SDGs that you see on the screen, but we have like a really strong work with the educational sector, including schools, but also libraries, because those are the places where we can get the communities and teaching them how to use technology. We work in Latin America and the Caribbean, and we have had the opportunity to reach more than 800,000 people in the years that we have been working on. And we really believe at Macaya that technology is an enabler for accessing to opportunities, as I said before, in education, in health, universal services, employment, etc. However, as Anna said at the beginning of the session, we have seen that not a lot of people has access to internet. I mean, like we are missing the 25%, as Anna say, and perhaps we can say, okay, we are good because we have the other 75% have access to connectivity, which means that they can use technology. But the challenge here is that the 25% that we are missing is the more challenging one, because usually people living in vulnerable situations in rural areas, as Stefano say, or in this kind of places where it's almost or it's very difficult to bring technology. So if that people do not have access to technology, that people is not going to learn how to use technology, so it's not going to have, I mean, the possibility to take advantage of all the opportunities that the 4th Industrial Revolution bring to us. So in this case, and that's also the case in Latin America, of course. So the question for us is, are we going to leave all that people behind? I mean, when I say behind is that people cannot take advantage of these opportunities. So the social gap could be more bigger and bigger every time. So in order for tackling this, at Macaya, we have two strategies, and we have implemented two strategies. The first strategy is that we prioritize the development of digital skills over the infrastructure. I mean, although the infrastructure is relevant and is important for us, the digital skills is where the real issue could be, or where the real solution could be. Why I say this? Because we have seen with the people we work, with the communities we work, that we find some people that have access to connectivity, have access to technology, and although they have access, because they don't know how to use it, so they don't take advantage of the technology. I mean, although they have access, so they don't use it for studying, or they don't use it for having access to the medical system and stuff like that. But on the other way around, we have also seen that when a person has access, when a person do not have access to connectivity, do not have access to technology, but do know how to use technology, that person is going to look for the way to have access and take advantage of the opportunities that technology can bring to the communities. How they have access? Because they can look for the access in a public school, in a public library, or perhaps in a public institution that they find near the place they are living. Where is the complete? So that's one of the strategies we use. The other one, of course, is related with, okay, we need to address the lack of connectivity. And the methodologies we have used to address the lack of connectivity are related also, or are pretty similar to what Stefan was mentioning. I mean, we have different methodologies because we have different cases, or different according to the community. So in this case, what you can see in the screen is our digital skills and STEM road we have with different kind of people. So we work with child between 5 and 13 years. I mean, and what we do with them is that making them comfortable using technology, and making them, apart from making them comfortable, also how they can be secure using technology. So in this case, for example, what we have done in rural areas is that we come to those rural areas with librarians. So we had a program that we call it Libraries for Peace. And this program took place in those areas in Colombia where the conflict used to be. So what we did is that we trained the librarian, and we equipped the librarian with some tablets and hotspots with contents locked in the hotspots. So the librarian took a backpack with him or her, with a bunch of tablets and with the hotspot, and they reach the community, the rural community, and once there, the people can have access to a lot of contents, to books, to documents. They can have classes about literature or maths or let's say poetry, I mean, any stuff. We also work with youth between 14 and 18 years, and in this case, it's more about how they can love technology or how they develop love for technology. I'm coming back later with this example because I had a video for this. And we work also with people major of over 18 years, and it is mostly about how they can use technology for finding a new job. We have been also working with agricultural people and with teachers, and in this case, we have used some other methodologies like bringing connectivity to those areas with different methodologies. So we found rural areas without connectivity, and we have take advantage of the TVY spaces methodology or radio frequency methodology. So we can connect some schools, libraries, and farms. So the family and the people can have access to internet, and they can, of course, navigate and have access to information, knowledge, educate themselves, etc. Coming back to the youth, so those youth between 14 and 18 years, we have a methodology that we call innovation labs. What we do here is that we teach youth how to code. We teach them also robotics and electronics, but we don't have internet to teach them, I mean, for having the contents available. So what we do is that the teacher come to the community in a library or in a school, bring the contents and download the contents in the computers available in these schools, and use the contents in order to teach them this stuff. Once they know how to code, we encourage them to identify social problems or some issues in their communities, and after that we develop some kind of an innovation lab so they can solve these problems identified with technology. And they discover how technology can add value to the issues they have in their community. And all of this is using this kind of methodologies of offline methodologies. Let me share it with you just a video. The video is in Spanish, but it has subtitles, so you can follow the subtitles.
Considero que estos laboratorios de innovación que la organización Macaya pues ha permitido establecer y realizar en este colegio nos abre un mundo de posibilidades que de pronto nuestros estudiantes en este contexto rural pues no tenían. Principalmente vemos cómo ellos observan y además de eso se apropian de conocimientos que pueden impulsarlos a nivel profesional, no solo aquí en cuanto a labores del contexto mismo donde viven, sino también más allá de eso, la programación, la implementación de robótica como solución a problemas dentro de la misma región. Me parece a mí que es un éxito del laboratorio y creemos firmemente en la institución de que la posibilidad de continuar con estudiantes que vienen en grados inferiores pues nos abrirá un mundo de oportunidades también para ellos.
Como se puede ver acá en la maqueta está el sensor de nivel de agua. Puede ayudar a identificar qué nivel de agua hay. Como pueden ver, está prendido el LED verde que nos indica que el nivel de agua es óptimo. El objetivo general del proyecto es diseñar un sistema de abastecimiento automático que permita evitar el desperdicio de agua al momento del llenado de los tanques. Los tanques para la fauna requieren un suministro de agua constante para garantizar el cuidado y bienestar de los animales. Sin embargo, el vaciado y llenado de los tanques suelen ser un poco laborioso y costoso. Hidropet busca realizar una automatización para evitar el mal manejo de este recurso hídrico.
Well, so those are some of the examples we do. I mean, we work with different people with different methodologies. What comes next? Now we are developing a platform in order to teach computational thinking to people. And we are trying to make that platform available offline because we know that we need to reach all the population. It doesn't matter if they have access to internet or not. So hopefully next year we will have this platform available for people to know, to learn how about computational thinking, although they don't have connectivity. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Ann, you're muted again.
I know, I keep doing this. I'm so sorry. No, that was really inspirational. I'm looking at these young people who know so much and are going to contribute so much. Carlos, maybe this is a impolite question, but how are you funded? It seems to me that most of the OLI partners spend a fair amount of time fundraising from different entities in order to continue their work. Is that same for you?
Yeah, that's one of our sources. I mean, we have like international and national partners. So we fundraise. And also we have like some resources that comes from, let's say, some services that we provide to companies. So with those resources, we managed to develop these programs on the fields. Actually, the program you see, the video you saw, was a program financed or funding by our own resources.
Okay. Any other questions right now for Carlos? If not, we'll have time at the end. Did I
Okay.
miss one?
No, I think it'd be a general question about OLPC. We can wait till the end over that one.
Okay, okay. So our third presenter is Mike Dawson, who's CEO and co-founder of Ustad Mobile, and he is based in Dubai. So we're giving you a real tour around the world here. Ustad, pardon?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were asking me a question maybe. Ustad Mobile is a startup mobilizing education for all using low-cost, open-source software to improve school monitoring and deliver content to offline mobile devices. And in the time we've known Mike, he was a startup. I'm not sure how much startup he is anymore. His organization is becoming quite robust, and he's going to tell us about it.
Thank you very much for having us here. So I will share my screen. I'm gonna do something. Oh, hang on, that's not what I wanted to do. No. Did that work? Yes, it should be just sharing. Should be sharing only the presentation? No. Why isn't it doing this correctly? Stop. Sorry. Zoom does not seem to like Linux. It seems to stop. Hang on. Why doesn't it want to share just the correct window?
We did have a screen there, Mike.
Yeah, you did have a screen. Gotta be kidding me. There. Right, well, that did work before the Zoom update change, and now it works and it actually shows the presentation that I wanted to. So I do apologize for the technical fun of dealing with Zoom on Linux. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think the other two have given you an interesting flavor of what are OLI members doing now, practically, tangibly. What does that look like? We have our existing mobile learning app, which is designed to enable users to teach, learn, and share online or offline. It is being used primarily in Rwanda, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan at the moment. Our clients for that include now UNICEF, Save the Children, Dubai Cares, and others. From large organizations to smaller organizations, and it's still used in Afghanistan in illegal, shall we say, schools, which are continuing for girls in Afghanistan who are otherwise excluded from education. yeah, so we're not quite a startup anymore. We're about 10 people working full time between Dubai, other parts of the United Arab Emirates, and India. And we have a new initiative which we're excited about, which will be fully launching at the M-Education Alliance Summit in July in Nairobi, which is called Respect. And what Respect is about is enabling other EdTech apps to take advantage of some of the technology that we developed so that they can make their own apps that much more accessible for those with no or limited connectivity. So I wanted, yeah, as Ann said, connectivity is not binary. I wanted to, unfortunately, the usage gap is literally in sub-Saharan Africa 10 times the coverage gap. The coverage gap, as of a year ago, was at maximum 10% in sub-Saharan Africa, which is still a lot of people. But the usage gap is the people who have the signal but can't afford it or can't afford using it. So the usage gap, in our opinion, is actually a much bigger problem by nature. And I want to highlight one issue here. We say, well, there's this solution for users who are offline or that solution for users who are offline. Well, when we say, okay, it requires a smartphone, is anybody really offline because they don't want the data bundle or they don't want a smartphone? That's a tiny percentage. So the root of people who don't have sufficient access to connectivity, it's money. They're not online because they don't have enough money compared to what it costs and what they have to, what other things they have to spend on, food, housing, education, etc. So if you don't have enough money for the data bundle or, to have a little bit of WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, who's going to buy a smartphone if they don't have an internet signal or can't afford to use the internet signal? That is a question that one I think has to wrestle with. It's all very well to, if I haven't seen the offline solutions that, okay, well, what if you don't have the signal, you probably don't have the device. So how are you going to do that in a sustainable way? Really, sustainability, we think, is about really cutting cost as far as possible. And so we have some new ways that we think will help cut costs and therefore cut the usage gap. The typical thing that people say, yeah, we don't have enough space to install an app. That's one thing. The app is too slow, even if you can download it or you can get it to work offline. If the app is just too slow, that's a problem. It uses too much data. Every extra gigabyte is money. If it doesn't perform adequately offline, even though there's connectivity limitations, that doesn't mean ministries have lowered their expectations that they want data for decision makers. And then, do any of these apps actually work together? Do they want teachers and students to each create a separate account? So you use 5 apps and you need 5 accounts. Yeah, that's not really something that teachers really want to have to do when, they have a difficult enough job already. So we did some research that will be coming out through the M-Education Alliance. And I think that extra research paper will be out hopefully in 2 to 4 weeks. That is perspectives from practitioners. That includes mostly director level people from major donors and ministries in sub-Saharan Africa. So we group challenges from those into cost, data, we mean real-time data, not data bundles, privacy and ease of use. And just to go a little bit on what we're doing in terms of the cost. So you can do this UNICEF policy brief. According to them, to make data usage affordable, I quote unquote zero rate it, 2021 would be $500 billion, practically $500 billion across low and middle income countries for 10 years, so $50 billion a year. When you run the math on it, that works out at about $1 per child in a low middle income country per month. So that's $12 a year. And well, the annual budget per child per year in a low income country on average is just $53. So essentially UNICEF is advocating that, you know, the cost of data is roughly 20% or a bit more than 20% of the entire Ministry of Education's budget would just have to be for data. You know, plus, you know, of course, you've got software devices and all the rest on top of that. So yeah, that's a problem. That has to be cut. So certainly offline internet style solutions where you can share things between devices can cut a lot of the cost out. We are also interested in this bit around a mobile network operator where we can go, well, if we can give the mobile network operator a way to cache this data, even though the data is large, well, then it can still be economical for the mobile network operator to provide that zero rated because they don't have the marginal cost every time somebody goes and downloads it. And because these mobile networks already have, as we know, 90 to 95% coverage, if we can make this kind of data accessible without the marginal cost to download it, that will be passed on to the subscribers because these operators have to compete. That will help. You know, reducing the cost of the actual data itself will help, and you know that can, we think, increase access quite a bit. We've been looking at, you know, what sort of data requirements can be measured. This is with regard basically creating a sort of label, as it were, of apps that can been reviewed to not use too much data. And also looking at device requirements, you know, how much space does a given app actually need on devices? Because it's not just internet, you know, it's nobody doesn't have internet because they don't want it, or very few people don't have it because they don't want it. They don't have it because they've got limited access to funds. If they have limited access to funds, it is very likely that the device they are using has a limited capacity. And people often make the mistake of thinking, oh, Android is Android. Well, no. The $50 Android device performance and the $500 Android device performance are not quite the same. So it's really important to test and engineer things accordingly. Yeah, so yeah, on this initiative, you can see respect.world. That is the website for it. You see what's there now. This war will follow. We also will have some grants that will be available for open source developers, product owners who want to integrate with this new app launcher that we are creating. And finally, I didn't know somebody mentioned OLPC before. If you have any questions on OLPC, one laptop per child, please do also feel free to drop them here. I was the idiot that got tasked with running that project in Afghanistan when what was USAID was there at the time, tasked us to actually run that project in Afghanistan. So yeah, with that, I will close for any questions.
Great, Mike. Go ahead, Ann.
No, I'm just looking at Mike Jensen's question here.
Yeah,
Does
happy to
Ustad have
answer
any,
that.
have any indication that MNOs will zero rate cache data? Mike?
Yes, legally binding contract with a mobile network operator in South Asia. We actually looked at the number of countries that have passed net neutrality is actually really quite minimal. I think in sub-Saharan Africa we didn't find any, and in the main one was, of course, in India. But in India, the price of data has become so low that, the data at costs in many parts of India almost a non-issue anymore. Because of not all parts, but certainly in a lot of places, for a lot of particular content, the actual data bundle cost is not such a big issue anymore, because they just got they are maybe 1/10 of the average price in Africa. So a combination of the fact that India is in the middle income bracket by GDP, and the fact that their data access costs are so low, means that the need for that kind of thing that is not net neutrality adherent in India is not that much. Does that answer the question?
I think so. You make the point, Mike, that there are so many different scenarios and regimes and technical developments, and it's all very dynamic as well. It's all changing. So the work of OLI to fill all these gaps and changes is really heroic. I think many of us just think, well, I've got access, I've got a computer, I'm connected. And I think in more developed countries, it's true for maybe most people, but it's not true for everybody, even in developed markets and then everywhere else. So we did have a question from Jen Nelson about one laptop per child, the program started by Nicholas Negroponte at MIT 20 years ago. To provide these low-cost machines, which I think were designed to run autonomously and have some similarity to how OLI is put together. Do you have any update on that, or how does it fit in? This, I guess, an open question for everybody.
Yeah, so maybe I'll go first, given my personal connection to that. I mean, Ustad Mobile was very much a company that created based on my experience that started with one laptop per child. Now, you say low-cost machine, the machines still cost $200. Plus, then there was everything else that wasn't a laptop, like teacher training, electricity, technical support, all of that. So you got to a number that was somewhere, I believe, around the $70, $80 per year per child mark. Well, that's about 80% of the Ministry of Education's budget per child per year in Afghanistan. So in order to do one laptop per child in Afghanistan, you need to double the education budget at a minimum. That's not low cost, if you say you have to double the budget. So the whole idea of starting Ustad Mobile was to try and have similar objectives, but to do so with the phones that people already own. And I think there's a few projects that rose up from the one laptop per child experience. I see a lot of people take pot shots at all the mistakes that one laptop per child made. There were many mistakes. I made a few of them myself. But it was a forerunner, and it kicked off a lot of interesting initiatives, like Internet in a Box is another one that rose from that. So it created a lot of lessons learned. I'd say it's much worse to look at people repeating the mistakes of one laptop per child after they were already done and learned. I wouldn't so much go after one laptop per child for making the mistakes for the first time, being a front runner.
Makes sense. Anyone else work with OLPC or have any perspective on that?
I can jump on that. I mean, in our case, in the countries we work, I mean, it's not available. It's not affordable, and there's not the availability of having one computer per each student or per each child. So basically, what we do is something similar to what Mike was saying, and it's like we use the devices available in the community. We have found something really particular in rural areas, and it is that although people do not have access to connectivity, the majority of them has like mobiles and smartphones. It's just that they don't know how to use it, or they don't have the connectivity to use all the functionalities. So we can use this kind of devices for teaching them how to, and then when we can connect, they have access to all the opportunities.
Interesting. So the phone is far more pervasive than PCs, of course. But does that constitute meaningful connectivity? I mean, I guess it can to the individual. It's meaningful that they do things they've never done before, but does that fit in with the general definition that you're working on? Anyone?
I'd say meaningful connectivity. Is it meaningful? That depend. You can't put that to a specific number of megabytes. It's meaningful if it does something that's meaningful and useful for you. For a lot of people, just being able to easily message and exchange pictures with their friends and family, without extra per message cost is meaningful. Just being able to communicate with friends and family is meaningful, and that can be just a few megabytes. So when you're talking about education related data, often this starts getting bigger and heavier and thus more costly. And then you need to look for offline internet style solutions that can bring down, the number of megabytes and, hence the number of dollars or whatever currency you need to accomplish that meaningful use case.
All right. You also have the challenge of applications and websites that are not well engineered for phone interface. Trying to fill out a government form with a phone can be a challenge.
I've found it can be a challenge even with any device.
Exactly.
Depending on the form. I mean, the thing is, I think when it comes to engineering, what we need to realize is that actually offline first is harder, because when something is online only, again, there's only one point. It's going back to and from the internet. If something is offline only, again, from an engineering point of view, it's relatively straightforward. There's one thing, it's going to and from a file, and that is that. When something has to work both offline, but also when online is present, take advantage of that, then you have synchronization challenges, you have compression challenges, you have all kinds of engineering, non-trivial engineering challenges to make that just magically work as quickly and easily as possible for the user. And this is one of the things we really want to work on with the Respect Initiative, is to provide the tools that developers need so that they can not have to reinvent that wheel every time, that there will be something that handles a lot of these synchronization problems, compression problems, etc. for them.
Right. Okay. Well, we're coming up on our hour here, and we don't want to keep people over. Carlos, I know you've got a commitment. Let's go around for sort of a final comment. Carlos?
Well, I think that we need to be resourceful and creative, because we are not coming easily to a situation where we can solve connectivity issue in all the world, in all the regions. So focus on working with these communities in a different ways, different methodologies, is something that we can do, so we can really bring all the opportunities that technology have to these people that are in vulnerable situations. So I think we need being creative, as we have been, and with all the methodologies we have seen today, because the problem will be on the field for a long time.
Right. Thank you. Mark, you still with us? Mike, you have a final word? I mean, you summed it up pretty well just
I've
then.
said so many words. What more words should I say?
I don't know.
I
That
think the
was
fact that, yes, it's not a binary issue, and I think if I were to leave, my most important thought would be, you know, it's all about money. Unfortunately, that's the reality. The vast majority of people who don't have connectivity, it's not because they don't want it; it's because of affordability. So what thing we can do to drive costs down is going to be something that can bring more people in. It's not a binary thing, you know. So every little step we can take in that direction quantitatively is a step we should take.
great point. Stefan, are you still with us?
You know, I think he's had to leave.
Okay, all right. I had one more question. It came up. I think it comes up a lot in this conversation when availability, the end of the terrestrial infrastructure runs out, which is a lot of these places that is now being eclipsed by low Earth orbit satellites that can connect the polar sites and pretty much anywhere, not for free. So I was just wondering about the usability of that technology in sort of community network development. So you have a hub that people can tie into. Are you seeing that? Or I think you mentioned, Ann, in your comments somewhere written about LEO as a factor, but I remember something. Do you remember what you were saying about it, or does anybody have any perspective on that?
Well,
No.
no. I mean, just to emphasize for us, although they could have access to some kind of technology, if we don't teach them how to use it, if we don't develop the digital skills they need, they're not going to use it. Or okay, they will learn how to use WhatsApp and share some photos and stuff like that, which is also good. But perhaps they won't take advantage of technology for productive ways, or for productive areas such as education or other matters. So we need to work in digital skills.
Yeah, it's just one piece of the puzzle. Okay, I think we're there.
Just one final thing on the low Earth orbit topic. The low Earth orbit topic solves the coverage problem. Pretty much done. Problem solved. You know, you can get coverage anywhere. But as we showed, that's not the problem. The problem is the usage gap is 10x, 10 times the coverage gap problem. And the cost base of low Earth orbit satellites, all the numbers I've seen show that the recurring cost of launching, maintaining, etc., means that the cost per megabyte is actually higher. So yes, they are solving the coverage problem. They are not going to solve the usage gap and affordability problem. And it's the affordability problem that is 10 times the problem of the coverage.
Fair point.
Over.
So, Ann, what's the outlook now? What are the major challenges facing OLI?
OLI itself, you mean, or do you mean the
Yes,
concept
sorry.
of it?
No, OLI itself, the consortium.
Yeah. We've certainly heard about all of the different challenges that people attempting to solve problems are facing, and they are legion. And we're very fortunate at this mix of skills. You know, Mike is our kind of resident engineer economist. Carlos is our social science kind of approaching society person. And everybody brings different skills to their own organization. So they're amazing, every single one of them. OLI, I think, is we've had a bit of funding the last couple of years in order to get some markers done with the new website and all of its capabilities with the big white paper. And I think we're looking next at what our priorities are. and how we're going to identify them and pay for them. So, you know, we get back to our resident economist, Mike here. This to coordinate and bring people together doesn't take a lot of money, but it takes a sense of vision and purpose. Why are we here? And a bit of coordination. So I think that's what's next on our plate, and we're looking at it very seriously.
Well, this has just been fantastic. I was looking back, it's been exactly 4 years since you were on. We had Jim O'Donnell on a session, I think the week before or after. And it's amazing the tenacity of the people involved and the consortium itself. Our hats are off to you all, and obviously many people rely on your efforts to participate in this digital environment that we're creating constantly here. So thank you all for coming and sharing, and we hope you'll come back, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, IFLA. Appreciate it.